If you are struggling or faltering in your faith a little bit, your spouse should be able to pull you back up. And you're going to have times where you're kind of doubting things or going through things, and your spouse is there to say, hey, I know you believe in this. I know where you came from. Get back up again. And it's sometimes you're both going to be down at the same time, but you're still going to help each other back up. And I think it's not to say that you can never be single and follow God. Of course you can. But when you're falling down, it's easier to have an eternal companion that knows everything about you to say, hey, I know you. I know that you can do this and get back up and follow the right path.
Welcome back to my podcast called Verses to Live By. I appreciate you coming back.
Thank you for having me back.
Yep. This is my wife, guys. I'll kind of start us off by letting you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Reintroduce myself.
Yeah.
So my name is Bryn. I'm Luke's wife, and we have been married for a little over a year and a half, and so far so good. And our relationship is kind of what we're going to focus on today. So who better than to bring me?
Awesome. Yeah. And then I kind of wanted to ask, if you could tell your past self something right now, what would it be?
Relationship wise or?
Relationship wise or just anything, if you could look back at your past self, knowing everything you've been through now, what would you say to your past self?
I think I would tell my past self to stay positive and to laugh about the hardships, because that's kind of what I've been doing. And I think that's how you get through things, staying on the positive side of things. Not everything has to be taken so seriously. I think, you are so young and you're going to learn so many different things, and it doesn't have to be serious. Not everything is life or death. And
yeah, I love that you say that.
It's kind of what I've learned the past few years. Just when a lot of trials come, you have to laugh about things or else you're not going to get through it. So
yeah, I love that you say that, because I know there's so many people that just take things way too seriously. And sometimes they take things too seriously in a relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And it's hard when your heartstrings are pulling at you sometimes, and to not take things too seriously. But when anger starts coming in the conversation, if you're getting angry over these little things, it can really start.
You gotta let things go.
Yeah, you gotta let things go, right? You gotta understand to choose your battles, but also just it's not a war. You're on the same side.
Yes, you're on the same team. I think that's what you have to remember. You are not fighting with each other. You're on the same team, building each other up.
And you both have these same goals in mind, and when you're fighting with one another, you're just
ideally, that's why you marry someone with the same goals and morals that you have. So then you're on the same page from the get-go.
Yeah, I love that. Do you want to start us off with the verse that you have that's standing out to you and kind of centers around our topic today, which is relationships?
Yes. So I'm in 1 Corinthians 13, 6 and 7. And it says, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. The reason I think that goes so well with relationships is if you are not focused on enduring to the end in a godly perspective and a relationship perspective, then it's not going to end well. So you've got to endure to the end in life, but also in your relationship with one another, to not give up when things get hard. And I think that's the most important thing. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows in your life. And it's about finding the right person to handle those tribulations that you're going through.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because sometimes people really do just throw in the towel when it gets too difficult, right? You got to understand, the grass is not greener on the other side, right? Everyone always thinks the grass is greener on the other side. Well, guess what? You used to want to get married so badly. Now that you're married, some people want a divorce. And it's sad because the people, that freedom, but it's sad because the people that are single right now want a relationship so bad. And sometimes there's some people that are in a relationship and they want that freedom so bad, but they forget, that freedom is what that freedom that they had, that loneliness is what made them want a relationship so bad. They forget that their main reason for finding a partner and choosing that is the better route, right? And that is what is going to tie people together stronger. So I have a verse that actually ties into this a little bit, and it's in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 through 12. And it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have good reward for their labor. But if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if 2 lie together, then they have heat. But how can they be warm alone? And if 1 prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken. So yeah, this verse kind of ties into what we were saying, right? Like, you don't want to be alone when you fall. But also there's been a point in my past dating experience where I looked at this verse and I was in a toxic relationship, right? It wasn't going well. There's a lot of problems with it, a lot of issues. And I fully believed, she knows, right? I fully believed that if I just, kept throwing that love out that God would want me to throw out, that it would all be okay. I kept believing that, if God forgives, I need to forgive her for all these things she's done to me. And it really hit me like a switch when actually my grandpa said something to me. And he said, something along the lines of, you don't need to let that person continue to destroy your life if they are, because you're not God yourself. You're not, you're mortal, right? You make mistakes and you're going through this life. People are either going to tear you down or pull you up, right? And I realized I was getting torn down from that relationship constantly. And, as I realized that, I looked back at this verse and I was like, yeah, this is a great verse for when you have someone that's helping you and lifting you up. But if they're not helping you and lifting you up, they're just going to bring you down even more.
It was a good non-example because you were down and your significant other was not helping you back up. And that's exactly what they should be doing. Right. And I think especially with faith, if you are struggling or faltering in your faith a little bit, your spouse should be able to pull you back up. And you're going to have times where you're kind of doubting things or going through things, and your spouse is there to say, hey, I know you believe in this. I know where you came from. Get back up again. And it's sometimes you're both going to be down at the same time, but you're still going to help each other back up. And I think it's not to say that you can never be single and follow God. Of course you can. But when you're falling down, it's easier to have an eternal companion that knows everything about you to say, hey, I know you. I know that you can do this and get back up and follow the right path. So it almost keeps one another accountable in a healthy way, not in a toxic, like, oh, are you really doing that? Like, we shouldn't be doing that way, but in a, hey, I know this is your goal and I know that this is good for you because I know you. Let's keep working on ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think it's so important just to remember, why you fell in love in the first place, right? Some people forget that and then they try and find something else. But, the minute that they start looking for something else, they realize it's not as good, right? Yeah. I mean, nothing's as good as what you can build together with someone for eternity.
Speaking of love, if you fall in love, you're going to stay in love by working at it. Love starts as a feeling, and then after a little bit, it's an action and effort that you put in. To love someone is the work that you put in to love them. Yes, you are in love with them and you have that initial feeling that hopefully stays with you, but it's not going to stay if you don't act on it and show your significant other that you would do anything for them and you care about them and you want to help them.
Yeah. And one thing I think of an example of that is to continue dating who you marry.
Yes.
Right. There's so many people that as soon as they get married, they stop dating.
Said, I bagged him. I'm not going to try anymore.
Yeah.
That's not how it happens at all.
Yeah, exactly. We're
still dating one another.
Yeah, you got to continue dating, one
Get
another.
to know them still. There's
Right.
going to be something we don't learn about each other until we're 65. That's just how it's going to happen.
And just enjoy your time together, right?
Yeah.
And also to kind of throw into that, I know we talk about this sometimes. To love one another is amazing and it's beautiful, but to also like one another and still have a crush on one another.
We like one another.
You know,
yeah.
I think that's so important. And to understand
Being
that's
best friends.
Yeah, being best friends,
Yeah.
and to also understand that's not always going to be a feeling, but sometimes it's just an action, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Getting to know one another's hobbies that maybe you don't like as much, that can be a way to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. So a question I have for you, Bryn, is when things are getting difficult in a relationship, let's say, let's throw in a good scenario at you.
Okay.
Let's say it's significant money problems and they're in a house, right? Let's say they're in a house and they realize that they have to sell the house because of someone getting fired. And they're going through it financially. Walk me through just kind of how they should handle that, in your perspective.
I think if you were only with someone for their finances in the beginning, then that's your real issue.
Mm-hmm.
If you truly care about that person on their spiritual level, they are someone who you would like to spend eternity with, then this is just a small portion in the long span of things. This is premortal life and this is afterlife. This is where you are right now. It's a teeny tiny little dot. You just have to get over that hump. And when you view it that way, anything's possible. You know, yeah, maybe you'll have to live with your significant other's parents or a family member or a friend for a little bit while you get back on your feet. But if you really want to put everything into it, then you'll do whatever you can. Maybe get a second job, help them get back on their feet, and then hopefully you can provide for one another. Mm-hmm. Not to excuse bad behavior. And if it gets to a point where it really is not okay, that's another story. But
yeah, I love that. I love that you brought that up. Another question I have for you is, our marriage has been amazing, right? We've been married for a little over a year and a half. Mm-hmm. But there has been some difficult things that we didn't expect.
Yeah.
That happened. So if you want to kind of dive into that and then kind of how I helped you through or how we helped each other through instead of the other way around where I was like, oh, this is just too much.
Yeah,
like throwing the towel, right? Kind of walk us through that personal experience.
Yeah. The biggest thing I'm thinking of is to mourn with those that mourn. And that's exactly what you did. So about 9 months ago, I think it's been, my dad passed away and it was very unexpected. And Luke handled it with such grace. He didn't make it all about himself. And he was truly so upset with me, like just as upset as I was. And I think that's what God wanted him to do, to mourn with me. Because if you were out there like, oh my goodness, now I have to take care of Bryn and go through this is so annoying. He made sure that he was there with me every step of the way. And he felt every emotion I have, obviously not on that same level because it was my dad, obviously, but that could have tested our relationship in a completely different way. But if you are with someone where you're going through something that challenging and they make it worse, then that's not the person you should be with. Luke made it 10 times better than if I were alone. And we both were leaning on each other and God. And that changed the experience entirely. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I threw a fit in the hospital, right? I was so upset.
You were more upset than me at first. I was like, do I have to comfort you right now?
I was so upset. I do not do well with things like that. And, I don't think anyone really does.
There's no guide in life how to deal with that. So.
Right. There's no guide on how to deal with that. There's probably some scripture verses out there though.
Probably. Do you want me to read this scripture?
Yeah.
It was just exactly what I was saying, which is Romans 12:15 that says, rejoice with those that do rejoice and weep with them that weep. It's exactly what I'm saying. when your partner is going through something awesome, you should be excited, just as excited for them. If they're going through something heart-wrenching like that, you know, you've got to go through that with them too. And that's such a beautiful and also hard thing about marriage and companionship, because then you go through twice as many victories and twice as many downfalls. And that's just how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you shared that. And I love that verse, right? It's really just going through every single emotion together. All right. And this was such an unexpected thing for us too.
Yeah.
That we went through together. And I know that the longer we're married, the more we're going to be able to connect even more on things like this. Right. So a verse that I have for us is in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 2-3. And it says, with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love, and devouring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Right. So when there's an event like this, there can be a lot of anger. Right. But not only with what happened, but maybe there's anger with the couple that's going through it. They're like, you need to get back on the horse. You need to start getting back to work. You need to stop being on the couch all the time, crying, and
that would be horrible.
But there are relationships out there that are like that, and that breaks my heart. But it's just understanding that anger is not something that's meant to be in a relationship. There's a verse that talks about how you need to deal with your anger before you go to bed at night.
Yeah. You are a firm believer in that. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't care. We'll deal with this later. Like, let me sleep. You're like, no. Nope, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because you never know when your last day is going to be. And I think that's been proven to us more than ever. So I get where you're coming from for sure.
So for you, what is one of the most important things to have in a relationship, right? Because for me, I think for me, it's trust.
Yeah.
We trust one another like there's no tomorrow. We don't have any doubts about what we're doing during the day.
You could take my phone the whole day. I would not care.
Exactly.
And vice versa.
Exactly. So for you, what is it? What is that one thing? For me, it's trust and communication, I think, is really important, even though I need to work on communication sometimes.
Just kidding. I think having a friendship first is huge. If you are not best friends with your spouse, you're doing something wrong, because you, like you were saying, you need to like that person. You want to just hang out with them. If you took the romantic part of it all out, would you still want to be friends with that person? If the answer is no, you're with the wrong person. If we could solely only be best friends and nothing else, I would still have that, because we're just such good friends. We know each other so well. And again, like I was saying at the beginning, laugh about the stupid things. If you realize that you overreacted and made this huge dramatic thing, joke about it, honestly. An hour later, we're going to be laughing about it and we're going to move on. And I think people have a list of grievances for their significant other that they hold as weight and as, I don't know.
I know what you're saying.
They kind of hold that over their heads, and that you never, ever want to do that. Just throw it out the window.
So let me say that in a good analogy.
Okay.
When you are holding back your feelings and your emotions,
or holding on to grudges for that person.
Yeah, holding on to grudges for that person. You're slowly building a wall, brick by brick. And the bigger that wall gets, the more you feel separated from that person by a literal wall that you're building, because you're not sharing your feelings, because you're not sharing your emotions. Because if there's something that bothers you, you gotta tell one another, right?
Yeah.
I think it's so important to communicate those feelings. And as that brick in that brick wall gets bigger, you feel like you start to know that person less.
Yeah.
Right. So, sometimes it's tough to kind of chip at that wall sometimes. Sometimes it gets big and you got to start hammering that down, right? But the thing is, don't let it get big in the first place, right? Bring it up on the spot. If there's something that person's doing that's bothering you, bring it up on the spot. You don't want to have
to deal with it 20 plus years later.
Right, exactly. Because I mean, eventually that will tie into just major issues, you know? So yeah. Question I have for you is when you're going through something like that, where you're building up these bricks and these walls, what's the first step to kind of fixing that? What's the first step to kind of building that relationship back?
I think what I've been learning is to not get defensive and to not come at that person. You need to explain your feelings in a way that says, you do these actions, which then makes me feel as though this. You are not saying that you caused this in me or you did this and now I'm like this. You're not blaming. You're simply saying, I feel as though when you do this, I end up doing this. Is there a correlation and how can we go and fix that? I don't know if my family's going to be okay if I share this, but my parents did end up getting divorced after 30 years of marriage. And I think
before what actually happened.
Yeah. So right before my dad passed away, they did get divorced.
So yeah,
a few months prior.
The emotional trauma we were kind of talking about that we have been through.
So they were slowly building a wall. The wall was huge at this point. And it was simply because they could not have a conversation without it ending in an argument. It was coming at one another, and I would watch it all the time, and it would end the same exact way. They were getting defensive and blaming, and it was a cycle, right? They did not just sit down and say, this is how I'm feeling. It was targeted back and forth one another. And
when they did sit down and say, this is how I'm feeling, they would get defensive, right?
Exactly.
And that's where it's like, you know, they're the friction, right? There's friction there.
And I do think there are two people that are more equipped for each other, one with another, but I think they could have made it work if they just learned the communication. And obviously that's tricky because you don't want to say, oh, my parents should never have been together. But even if you feel like you're not the most compatible, how could you go about it with grace to get on one another's team? Back to what we were saying, you need to be on the same team with God. It should be a triangle. You shouldn't be facing one another against each other. You are right by each other on the same team. And I think that's one of the things my parents maybe were lacking. Not like I can truly speak because I wasn't in their relationship, but just from growing up seeing it. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, Bryn and I have a rule where if there is an issue that comes up, right? If there is something that one of us does that bothers one another, we don't tell our friends or family about it.
Yes, that is huge.
That is a big thing I wanted to dive into because if you do that, right, you are causing that person
you're tainting the image of them.
Yeah. So that person you are complaining to about your significant other, they aren't there when it's solved, when that issue is solved.
They're not hearing what happens after.
And so they remember only the bad things you told them, and they're not there when it's actually fixed. Right. And so I think it's so important to communicate with that person that you're with instead of going off and bringing in a third party person. And
unfortunately with my parents, I was constantly with my mom, the third person. I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me more things about your significant other to me, your daughter, than to him. And that was the issue. I shouldn't even know all this. You should be talking one with another. And I think also when you're going and telling your girlfriends, your guy pals, and saying, hey, she did this, he did this, like this just sucks right now. You're also not telling what you did to maybe trigger them or what mistake you made prior to, because they're on your side. And the more bad things you share, they're not going to remember all those great times where we had a fun date and you got me a special gift that I wanted, right? They're not going to remember that. They're going to remember all those things and start nitpicking. And then when things are good with one another, they're going to be like, remember when so-and-so did this? That was really lame of them. And then you're going to be like, yeah, it was. And then you're just going to have a tainted image in your own head yourself of your significant other. Right. So I don't think anyone around you should know when you and your partner are going through a challenge with one another.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, if there's something super severe, you should seek help.
Of course. If it's abuse or addiction related, of course, I think you need a third person involved. Professional.
But it's with these small little things, right?
But when we're talking about nitpicking and getting at those things, that's just between one another.
Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of dive into the blame game a little bit too.
Oh, yeah.
Let's think of a good example we can share and how it should be solved instead of how it's actually solved.
Okay.
Let's start with the dishes, right? If the dishes are a mess, right? A lot of people will be like, oh, why are you doing all this? I've got all this work going on that I have to get done. But really, they both have a lot of work that's going on, right? And so they both, should be able to help out a little bit, right?
Right.
And so, I think the blame game really is what tears down relationships in the beginning.
And it sounds so stupid about dishes, right? But stuff like that truly does add up. With the little things, dishes, money problems, which obviously money problems are a big issue. But like I was saying, in the grand scheme of things, it really is not. And I think we get carried away with the worldly possessions as well. Kind of keeping up with the Joneses. I think especially when you start a family, that's when it kind of the pressure's on, especially in nicer communities. It's like, well, how come my husband hasn't bought me this new house, this new car for our family of 4? Like, we should be here by now. And once you start doing that, then you're going to be like, wow, I don't want this spouse. I want someone better that can buy me all these things. And I know that sounds so silly, but it happens constantly.
Right. Materialistic things shouldn't be why you're getting in a relationship in the first place. If you think that person's going to just do all the providing for you, are you really in love with them in the first place? If you're choosing to marry someone where you're just expecting all this stuff, right? Materialistic things aren't going to make you happy in the long run. It's the relationship you build, right? And so kind of go with what you were thinking.
Yeah. So you hear a lot, especially in the very feminist side of the world, where they say, well, he needs to be doing this. He needs to pay for everything. He needs to clean the whole house, cook everything. You shouldn't have to lift a finger. I disagree with that. I think it should be you both give 100% of whatever it is that you've decided to do. And if you are not bringing your best self, why should you expect to get someone that's their best? So I think right now that I'm hearing a lot of girls talk online where they are like, you need to set your expectations higher for your spouse, but no one's telling them to set their expectations for themselves higher. And I'm seeing that a lot. You need to be working on yourself, getting closer to God every single day. You need to be improving your health, everything around you, before you try and bag the perfect guy, right? Or vice versa. Maybe guys are saying that too. I know plenty of guys in our lives that are doing the same thing too.
Right.
They're nitpicking on the smallest things about a companion when they're not working on their best self.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up. That's such a great point. Because, if they're not working on themselves, when they do find the right person, they're going to realize they're not even ready themselves. Right. And then because they realize they're not ready, they're going to find little things that bother them. And they're going to say, oh, no, it just wasn't for me.
And I think we live in such an independent person world right now where almost marriage is frowned upon, a lot online. Like, no, you can do that yourself. I never said you couldn't. You should be two independent people getting together to create an interdependency, not a codependency. You shouldn't be relying on one another. You should be building each other up because you both establish your own independent selves. You're both relationships with God and you're combining that. And that actually made me think of a verse in Genesis, which is very simple. And it says, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Do I think we're actually one person? No. But I think our mindset and our goals are in one. Our morals are one. And obviously we have our two separate lives. We are independent people that can, suffice on our own, but it's better together. We are becoming one in purpose. Kind of like when you're building a community in God, you're one in purpose. When you go to church, everyone there is one in purpose. And I think in a marriage, it should be the same thing. You're one in purpose. You're one in attention. You're one together.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Wow, you really dove into it. And I really appreciate you sharing the insights and coming on today, Bryn.
Yeah.
Is there any last things that you would say to someone that might just really be going through it in a relationship?
Yeah.
Because I know for me, I would just like to say, it's not always easy. It's sometimes it's going to be difficult, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't build up that wall.
Yep.
You gotta work through it, and you can't play the blame game.
Yep.
Right. And you can't get defensive. Those three things for me is what's standing out to me the most from what we've talked about.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, it's just going to separate you. And at the end of the day, you're on the same team. And so I want to let you kind of go ahead and share your last thoughts.
My final words is decide if that person is the right person. Pray, think about it, decide. My dad used to always say, you go into marriage with your eyes wide open and you go out half closed. And I think that's exactly what you need to do. You need to go in and say, is this the right person? Are we on the same page? Should I be doing this? Once you make that decision, realize that this is your eternal companion. Then once you decide that, then let the little things go. Mm-hmm. Let your small little grievances not build up. Never let them get into a wall. Just throw it out, right? Mm-hmm. Keep your eyes half closed. Once you know it's the right person, then you got to just laugh about things. Yeah. If it's not the right person, then pray about it and decide and go another route. But once you know you have the one, you got to just let the little things go.
I love that you brought up prayer because there's actually some statistic out there. Couples that pray together get divorced way less than couples that don't pray together.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I love that you brought that up. Thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it. And I appreciate what you shared. And I hope we were able to share some insights about relationships and some good verses to live by when it comes to relationships. And
1000%.
Yeah. Awesome. That was great.